If I told you there was a silent switch inside your cat's body that, once flipped, begins a countdown that cannot be stopped, would you believe me? The terrifying reality is that for 90% of indoor cats, this switch has already been flipped. We call it the dry state. You see, statistics tell us that 1 in 3 cats will eventually succumb to kidney disease. It is the #1 killer of our feline companions. But here is the secret that the pet food industry and even some well-meaning vets have failed to tell you. Kidney failure is not a disease of old age. It is a disease of chronic, lifelong dehydration. You look at your cat, and they seem fine. They eat their kibble, they drink from their bowl, they sleep in the sun. But biologically, a war is raging inside their nephrons. You are likely part of the 99% of owners who believe that if a cat is thirsty, they will simply drink. This single misconception is the most dangerous myth in feline history. Your cat is not a small dog. They are a desert-evolved predator designed to get moisture solely from blood and tissue, not from a stagnant bowl of water next to the fridge. By feeding a strictly dry diet, we are forcing a desert animal to live in a permanent state of drought. But don't panic. If you're watching this, you're about to join the elite 1% of owners who can spot the invisible signs of the dry state before it's too late. We are going to reframe everything you know about feline nutrition, not with guilt, but with biology. Let's turn that countdown off. Let's tackle the first and most pervasive myth. My cat drinks a lot of water, so he must be hydrated. I need you to listen closely, because this flips the script on everything we assume about health. In the wild, a cat's ancestors, the African wildcat, almost never drank standing water. Their prey was 70% to 80% water. Today, the average dry kibble is 5% to 10% water. When you see your cat sitting at the water bowl for long periods, lapping furiously, your brain says, good, he's taking care of himself. But biologically, this is a red alert. This is what we call the thirst threshold failure. Cats have an incredibly low thirst drive. By the time a cat's brain actually signals the urge to drink from a bowl, they are already 3% to 5% dehydrated. That might sound small, but at a cellular level, it is catastrophic. When you see them drinking, they aren't maintaining hydration. They are frantically trying to play catch-up on a debt they can never pay off. The dry food acts like a sponge in the stomach, absorbing the gastric juices and pulling moisture out of the surrounding tissues just to be digested. So that behavior you thought was healthy, it's actually a cry for help. It's your cat's body screaming that the dry state is becoming critical. If you rarely see your cat drink and they are on a wet diet, that is actually the gold standard. But if they are on dry food and you rarely see them drink, that is the danger zone. Now let's move to the bathroom. This is where most owners get a false sense of security. You scoop the box, you see the clumps, and you think, the plumbing is working. But the litter box is actually the most sophisticated diagnostic tool you possess, if you know how to read the code. The myth here is that strong, pungent urine is normal for cats. We've been conditioned to accept that cat pee just smells terrible. Here is the science. Because cats evolved in the desert, their kidneys are superpowers of conservation. They can concentrate urine to a level that would destroy human kidneys just to save a few drops of water in the blood. When a cat eats dry food, their urine becomes highly concentrated, dark, pungent, and full of crystals. This high specific gravity means the kidneys are working overtime under extreme pressure to filter toxins without enough fluid to flush them out. It's like trying to flush a toilet with a teaspoon of water. Over years, this pressure destroys the nephrons, the microscopic filters in the kidney. Once a nephron dies, it does not regenerate. It's gone forever. So that strong smell isn't a sign of a male cat or a musky animal. It is the smell of an organ under siege. We want voluminous, less pungent urine. We want a system that flushes freely, not one that hoards every drop of moisture out of survival panic. Let's look at something you touch every day, their fur. A common complaint I hear is, my cat has dandruff, I need a better shampoo. Or, his coat is a bit greasy, he's just lazy with grooming. Reframe this immediately. The skin is the largest organ of the body, but in the hierarchy of survival, it is the least important. When a body is chronically dehydrated from a dry food diet, the brain performs a triage. It says, we need water for the heart, the brain, and the kidneys. The skin gets nothing. The result is what we call the dry state coat. It presents as dandruff, usually along the spine and the base of the tail, or a coat that separates into clumpy spikes rather than lying smooth and velvety. This isn't a cosmetic issue, it's a hydration issue. Furthermore, because dry food is often high in carbohydrates, which cats have no biological requirement for, it can cause systemic inflammation that makes the joints stiff. A stiff cat hurts when it twists to groom. So that lazy groomer isn't lazy. He is stiff and dehydrated. When you switch to a high-moisture diet, one of the first miracles owners report is the disappearance of dandruff and the return of a silk-like texture. That isn't magic. That is the body finally having enough water surplus to allocate resources back to the skin. It's a visual receipt that you are healing them from the inside out. How many of you have a greedy cat? A cat that acts like they are starving an hour after eating. You fill the bowl, they crunch away, and the cycle repeats. You think he just loves food. But let's use evolutionary psychology to decode this. In nature, hunger and thirst are often satisfied by the same action: eating prey. The sensation of thirst in a cat is often interpreted by their brain as a drive to hunt, eat. When you feed dry kibble, you are giving them calories, but you are denying them the moisture their instincts expect to come with those calories. So the cat eats, gets the energy, but the hydration signal never shuts off. They feel a biological void. They go back to the bowl begging, thinking, maybe this time the food will quench my thirst. But it's dry, it's a vicious loop. They overeat, they get obese, and they remain chronically dehydrated. That 3 a.m. wake-up call might not be gluttony. It might be a desperate biological confusion. By switching to wet food, you align the calorie intake with the water intake. Suddenly, the greedy cat becomes satisfied. The begging stops because the biological expectation, food equals water, has finally been met. You aren't starving them by taking away the bottomless bowl of kibble. You are finally feeding them what they were actually asking for. We often joke about cats being aloof, grumpy, or moody. We accept tortitude or the grumpy old man persona as just cats being cats. But I want you to empathize with your cat for a moment. Think about the last time you were severely hungover, or when you haven't drunk water all day and you have that low-grade throbbing headache. You are irritable. You are lethargic. You don't want to be touched. Chronic subclinical dehydration creates a state of physiological malaise. The buildup of toxins in the blood, uremic toxins, that the kidneys are struggling to filter, can cause nausea and headaches. Many cats that are labeled aggressive or distant are simply cats that don't feel well. They are living in a low-level fog of toxicity. I have seen countless transformations where owners switch off the dry state diet, and within weeks, the grumpy cat becomes a lap cat. They start playing again. The zoomies return. Why? Because their head has cleared. The headache is gone. Their joints are lubricated. They aren't rejecting your love. They were rejecting contact because their bodies were in defense mode. Hydration is not just about kidneys, it is about personality. A hydrated cat is a happy cat. There is another hidden enemy in the dry state, and it's not just the lack of water, it's what replaces the water. To make kibble stick together in those little brown shapes, manufacturers use starch, carbohydrates, corn, wheat, peas, potatoes. But here is the evolutionary mismatch. Your cat has zero biological requirement for carbohydrates. Their metabolism is designed to run on protein and fat. When you flood a carnivore's body with carbs, you create inflammation. But specifically for the kidneys, this is a disaster. High blood sugar and insulin spikes damage the delicate microvessels in the kidneys, just like in human diabetics. So, dry food hits the kidneys with a double whammy. First, it denies the water needed to flush toxins. Second, it spikes inflammation that damages the filter itself. It's like running a car engine without oil, dehydration, and then pouring sand in the gears, carbohydrates. The myth is that grain-free dry food is the solution. It's not. Grain-free just means they used peas or potatoes instead of corn. Starch is starch. The moisture is missing. The biological insult remains. To truly validate your cat as the predator they are, we must minimize the starch and maximize the moisture. I can hear the objection already, but my vet said dry food cleans their teeth. They need the crunch. This is perhaps the most dangerous fabrication in the pet industry because it prevents people from switching to wet food. Let's look at the physics. When a cat bites a piece of kibble, it shatters. It doesn't scrub. The pieces are swallowed whole or crumble into a powder. Now, add the cat's saliva to that powder. It turns into a sticky, starchy paste that adheres to the gum line. Since cats lack the enzyme amylase in their saliva to break down sugars, that carbohydrate paste sits there, feeding bacteria, creating plaque and tartar. So, dry food can actually cause dental disease, which leads to inflammation, which, you guessed it, further stresses the kidneys. The bacteria from gum disease can enter the bloodstream and assault the heart and kidneys. True dental health comes from genetics, manual brushing or chewing on raw meaty bones, tendons, not from a carbohydrate cookie. Do not sacrifice your cat's kidney health for a dental myth that doesn't hold up to scrutiny. You are a smart owner. You can see that a cracker doesn't brush your teeth. It doesn't brush theirs either. By now, you might be feeling a heavy weight in your chest. That's guilt. I want you to take that guilt and throw it out the window. You didn't know. The industry spends billions to make sure you don't know, but now you do. And the beautiful thing about the feline body is its resilience. You don't have to go cold turkey today. In fact, you shouldn't. Cats hate sudden change. Here is the hydro-hacking protocol. Start small. If you feed strictly dry, start by adding warm water or bone broth, no onions, just garlic, to the kibble. Make it a cereal. Get them used to the texture of moisture. Then introduce high-quality wet food as a topper. Slowly over weeks, shift the ratio. Even if you can only afford to replace 50% of the dry food with wet food, you are doubling their hydration intake. You are winning. Invest in a water fountain. Cats prefer moving water because in the wild, stagnant water equals death. Moving water signals safety. Place water bowls away from their food bowls. In nature, cats don't drink where they kill to avoid contamination. These small insider shifts trigger their ancient instincts to drink more and accept moisture. You are not just feeding them, you are curating an environment that mimics their ancestral home. We have covered the biology, the myths, and the emotional connection. You now possess knowledge that puts you in the top tier of cat guardians. You understand that the dry state is a silent danger, but it is one you have the power to stop. Every ounce of moisture you get into your cat is a victory for their kidneys, a boost for their longevity, and an act of love. I want you to do a quick test right now. It's called the Turgor Test. Gently lift the skin on the back of your cat's neck and let it go. It should snap back instantly. If it tenses or moves slowly, that is your signal to act. Go check and then come back to the comments. Tell me, passed or working on it. There is no shame here, only progress. If you found value in this deep dive, if you want to protect your little desert hunter, subscribe and share this video with another cat parent. You might just save a kidney and a life today. You are their guardian. And now, you are a hydrated guardian. I'll see you in the next video.